single match? Ronnie O'Sullivan just gave us the answer. Keep watching because you're about to witness the comeback that left commentators speechless and reminded the snooker world why the Rocket remains absolutely untouchable, even when everyone thought he was finished. Let's be honest, the 2024-25 season was looking like a disaster for Ronnie O'Sullivan. During the 2024-25 snooker season, O'Sullivan withdrew from 9 tournaments, including the 2025 Masters, the 2025 German Masters, the 2025 Welsh Open, and the 2025 World Grand Prix. 9 tournaments. That's not just selective scheduling. That's a player who seemed completely out of love with the game. The 7-time world champion was knocked out in the first round of the recent UK Championship in York, and his struggles were becoming impossible to ignore. The whispers started getting louder. Social media was brutal. Is Ronnie finished? Has age finally caught up with the Rocket? Yeah, it was a nightmare decision to make, O'Sullivan told Eurosport.
Nightmare decision, really, to make. If you'd have asked me Sunday was I ready to play, I probably would have been okay to play. But it's such a massive tournament, and I've obviously been on this 3-week trip away playing, and I just think I just exhausted myself. A lot of pressure while I was away, and I just think the build-up of all that kind of just got a bit too much, really. So yeah, I mean, I lost the plot on Thursday, snapped my cue, so that's unplayable. So yeah.
His limited participation this year means he can no longer qualify for the Players' Championship or Tour Championship. Both tournaments offered £150,000 to the winner. We're talking about hundreds of thousands in prize money that Ronnie was essentially throwing away. Critics were having a field day. Here was snooker's greatest player seemingly giving up on the sport that made him a legend. The man who once dominated everything in his path was pulling out of tournaments left, right and centre, citing medical reasons and looking like a shadow of his former self. Fast forward to August 2024 Saudi Arabia Masters. Most people had written Ronnie off. He hadn't won a tournament all season. He'd been missing in action for months. But sometimes legends pick the perfect moment to remind everyone exactly who they are. The semi-final against Chris Waitlin started like any other match. But then something magical happened, something that hadn't occurred in professional snooker for over 7 years. Not only did Ronnie make his first maximum break since 2018, he made 2 in the same match. Let that sink in. After months of withdrawals, poor form and questions about his future, the Rocket delivered the most spectacular semi-final performance in snooker history. 2 perfect 1-4-7 breaks in one match, ending a 7-year drought in the most emphatic way possible. The crowd went absolutely mental. O'Sullivan, 49, a 7-time world champion, put on an impressive display during his 6-3 victory over Waitlin, 33, and became the oldest player to make a maximum 1-4-7 break. Not only was he back, he was rewriting history books while doing it. But here's the kicker. It wasn't just the 2 maximums. In that same match, Ronnie also compiled breaks of 1-4-2 and 1-3-4. So in one semi-final, after months of looking finished, he produced 4 of the highest breaks possible in snooker. That's not just a comeback, that's a complete and utter annihilation of every doubt. The Rocket pocketed a tidy £147,000 just from those 2 maximum breaks, more than many players earn in an entire season. But this wasn't about the money. This was about making a statement that echoed around the snooker world. Think about the psychological impact. One day, critics are questioning whether Ronnie should retire. The next day, he's producing breaks that most players can only dream of, making them look effortless against a quality opponent like Chris Waitlin. He earns the £147,000 bonus on offer for 2 1-4-7s in the 4 majors this season, including this event, plus the UK Championship, Masters and World Championship. The beauty of Ronnie's performance wasn't just the technical excellence, it was the timing. After months of withdrawals and poor form, he picked the biggest stage possible to remind everyone that class is permanent. This wasn't some lucky fluke or one-off performance. This was vintage O'Sullivan, operating at a level that mere mortals can't comprehend. What made it even more special was his composure. No wild stunning semi-final, Ronnie faced Neil Robertson in the final, And this is where the story gets even more incredible. Ronnie O'Sullivan and Neil Robertson will go for the £500,000 top prize in the Saudi Arabia Snooker Masters final. £500,000 was on the line, and Ronnie had already proven he was back to his devastating best. But here's what separates champions from superstars. Even in defeat, Ronnie showed why he remains untouchable. The final was an absolute thriller, with both players producing snooker of the highest quality. Robertson, a former world champion himself, had to play the match of his life, just to edge past a 49-year-old Ronnie who was supposedly finished just weeks earlier. The fact that Ronnie pushed one of the world's best players to the absolute limit after months away from competitive snooker, after a season of struggles, proves that his class transcends form, age, and circumstances. Let's put this Saudi Arabia Masters performance in historical context. The fastest 147 in history still belongs to Ronnie. 5 minutes and 8 seconds at the 1997 World Champ felt the £10,000 prize money was insulting, proved in Saudi Arabia that when he wants to turn it on, nobody in snooker history can match his combination of skill, audacity, and pure genius. Looking at Ronnie's career, the Saudi Arabia Masters fits a familiar pattern. Just when people start writing him off, just when the critics get loudest, the Rocket produces performances that remind everybody exactly who they're dealing with. O'Sullivan has withdrawn from 9 events this season, since it began in July, and is yet to win a tournament. But that statistic misses the point completely. When Ronnie chooses to compete, when he decides to flip that switch, he operates on a level that no other player can match. I just need to give myself as much time as possible to see where I'm at with it, and see whether it's something I'm going to be able to do. The 7-time world champion will not compete at the English Open in Brentwood, despite the venue being merely half an hour's drive from his Chigwell home. He's selective about when and where he plays, but when he does play, magic happens. The withdrawals aren't signs of decline. They're proof that Ronnie plays snooker on his own terms. He doesn't need to prove anything to anyone anymore, which makes performances like the Saudi Arabia Masters even more special. He's playing purely for the love of producing something beautiful. That's why in January I snapped my cue just in temper, in frustration. I don't really want to feel like that, so I've taken time out. I'm just going to try and fix what I think is the problem before I come back to play serious snooker again. What happened to Chris Wakelin in that semi-final is something that happens to every player who faces peak Ronnie. You're competing at the highest level, feeling confident, and then your opponent casually knocks in 2 maximum breaks like he's warming up. Imagine the psychological impact. You're a professional snooker player. You've worked your entire life to reach this level, and your opponent is making the game look like child's play. It's about being reminded that there are levels to this sport that you might never reach. But here's what makes Ronnie truly special. He doesn't gloat. He doesn't showboat, he just plays. The 2 maximums against Wakelin were delivered with the same calm precision as any other break. That's the mark of someone who's operated at the highest level for so long that brilliance has become routine. Even Neil Robertson, a multiple ranking event winner and former world champion, had to produce career-best snooker just to edge past Ronnie in the final. That tells you everything about the level the Rocket was operating at. What happened at the Saudi Arabia Masters wasn't just about ending a tournament drought or silencing critics. It was about adding another incredible chapter to a career that continues to defy logic, expectations, and time itself. Young players like Michal Shubarchuk are making waves, breaking records, and representing the future of snooker. But even these prodigies look up to Ronnie as the ultimate benchmark. When 3-time world champion Mark Williams compares young talents to O'Sullivan, it proves that Ronnie remains the measuring stick for greatness. He's up there with Ronnie O'Sullivan at that age. Maybe not as good, but not far away. Every time I watched him, he was knocking in 80s, 90s, 100s. It was frightening. The double maximum performance reminded everyone that records are made to be broken, but legends are forever. Ronnie didn't just end his 7-year wait for a competitive maximum, he did it twice in one match, proving that some players operate in a dimension all their own. Even in defeat against Robertson, even after months away from the game, even at 49 years old, Ronnie showed that true class doesn't fade. It might go quiet for a while, but when it resurfaces, it's more spectacular than ever. So, there you have it. The historic comeback that proves Ronnie O'Sullivan remains absolutely untouchable. After a season of withdrawals and doubts, he delivered 2 maximum breaks in 1 semi-final, reached a major final, and reminded the snooker world that greatness doesn't retire just because critics think it should. The Rocket operates on his own timeline, plays by his own rules, and continues to produce magic that mere mortals can only dream of. What do you think? Was this comeback the greatest response to critics in snooker history, or does Ronnie have even bigger statements left to make? Don't forget to subscribe for more incredible snooker content.